From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
At the legislature today, a higher tax on coal to fund water cleanup at abandoned mine sites passed the Senate and moves on to the House for consideration there. Also tonight, a special report on the Buffalo Creek disaster. At 8:05 a.m. on Saturday, February 26, 1972, a coal impoundment dam collapsed, sending black water through the narrow hollow, killing 125 people and injuring over 1,000 in just a matter of minutes. We'll look back to that day 40 years ago on the Legislature today. Good evening, I'm Beth Voorhees. The House's mine safety bill is back on track after a week on the inactive calendar. As Adam Cavalier reports, the bill saw an amendment come up on second reading today.
The amendment to the mine safety bill primarily changes how accountability is handled. House Judiciary Chair Tim Miley says the amendment strengthens the bill.
But the biggest change will be the accountability that the bill will require of the mine superintendent or the highest ranking person or employee that's at the mine.
UMWA Vice President and Marion County Democrat Mike Caputo says that while he's pleased with the bill, he's not happy about the process.
I still don't like the idea that the only time we can discuss coal mine health and safety reform is when people die, and we need to stop that. That should be a work in progress. That should be something that is part of the legislature's agenda every year, not one that just gets focused when unfortunate incidents like Upper Big Branch happen.
The amendment passed by voice vote. The House also passed 6 bills on third reading, one of which stirred great debate because of an email from the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. House Bill 4486 relates to the disclosure of insurance coverage. Miley says the bill makes a simple change.
Under current law, if you have a claim, whether it be for injury, death, or even property damage, if you sue somebody, you are entitled to get information relating to the insurance coverage that applies to that claim. What this bill does is creates the right to get that same information if you have a claim before you have to file suit. That's all this bill does.
Miley spoke on the bill for 13 minutes to debate claims made by the chamber that the bill was anti-cracker.
I actually got an email this weekend. The member's going to remain nameless, and they were pointing out the email to me, which I had already received, and they followed that up with, in my opinion, it's not worth getting into a pissing contest over. Well, you know what? When integrity is involved, I'll get into a peeing match with anybody on an integrity issue.
Miley told lawmakers he was sick of lobbyist fear-mongering.
Ironically, Senator Palumbo called me over the weekend yesterday, as a matter of fact, at home, to talk about some of the bills going back and forth between the two chambers. He said, he asked what we were going to do with this bill. I said, well, it's on third reading on Monday. I have no idea what's going to happen. He goes, have you gotten the same email that I did from the chamber? I said, yes. His comments were, I couldn't help but laugh out loud when I saw them call this the anti-cracker bill or the cracker killer bill.
Miley noted bipartisan support of the bill, citing Ritchie County Republican Woody Ireland's backing the bill.
And if I go to an attorney and he's willing to look into the case, and after 4 hours worth of discovery, he finds that there's only $20,000 worth of coverage, and he says, well, I'm no longer interested. Now I owe him 4 hours worth of work, and I've got zero out of it. So from that standpoint, I'd rather know that up front, and I'd rather he know that up front. And to me, it just makes good common sense.
No one rose in opposition to the bill, but it only passed 64-33. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Adam Cavalier in Charleston.
As the legislative pace quickens, the state Senate is dealing with issues from drugged driving to coal taxes. Bob Brenner has the story.
Right now, those suspected of drugged driving don't have to submit to a blood test. A law pushed through the Judiciary Committee at the urging of county prosecutors would change all that. While allegedly drunk drivers face jail if they refuse a blood test, until now, those stoned on drugs could have said no.
Only if they consent it to have their blood drawn. And of course, if they didn't consent, then you can't get it. So hopefully this will pass out of the Senate and be approved by the House as well.
After some controversy, a measure requiring establishments with roll-your-own cigarette machines to pay the same taxes and obey the same rules as big tobacco passed with a single no vote.
This bill would make any establishment with a roll-your-own machine a manufacturer of cigarettes and subject to the requirements of the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement, the Tobacco Products Excise Tax Act, and the Reduced Cigarette Ignition Propensity. Urge passage of the bill.
With very little debate, the Senate unanimously passed a bill increasing a special reclamation tax on surface-mined coal.
West Virginia is one of the nation's leaders in financing efforts to mitigate the effects of mining on land and water of our state. Senate Bill 579 was drafted in response to the continuing need to fund the Special Reclamation Water Trust Fund to reclaim and restore water treatment systems and fortified surface mining sites. Currently, the tax is 0.144. The bill will increase the reclamation tax to 0.279. This will result in an increased revenue of the state from approximately $17 million to $36 million. Urge passage of the bill.
Over these final 2 weeks, the speed of action is increasing. The Senate is dealing with nearly a dozen bills today and 3 times that many tomorrow. Also unanimously passed was a measure requested by the state police prohibiting the possession of so-called child erotica. This is material which is not by definition pornographic, but may be sexual in nature. Among measures expected to pass Tuesday is a proposed constitutional amendment granting a broad tax exemption to the massive National Boy Scout camp now under construction in Fayette County. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Bob Brunner in Charleston.
40 years ago, 125 people were killed and thousands left homeless when a coal company's slag dam burst at the head of Buffalo Creek Hollow in Logan County. As Bob Brunner reports, the scars remain.
Torrent reads along the hollow, Buffalo Creek squaring its path, behind it pain death would follow, flooding all beneath it.
When you look at the devastation that was once a rural community, it is hard to imagine that there were 500 homes washed away in what appears to be now an endless mudflat. It's hard to imagine that a wall of cold slurry water rampaged down this hollow in a matter of minutes on a Saturday morning. A late winter warm spell thawed the snowpack. Then came 2 days of heavy rains. 2 days before the dam burst, roads were closed due to high water in the area, and still the rains came. Then that slag dam that impounded the coal waste at the top of the hollow just came apart. Did anyone think it would ever happen? A survivor was asked that 2 days after the disaster.
I've been thinking that for years, ever since they backed that water up in there. They backed it up there with slate, and I figured if it ever got up far enough to come over the top of it, just the least bit of it, I'd just keep eating down and went on out.
Your family got out all right?
I don't know, didn't have enough get up about me to move on out of this hall.
The warnings came neighbor to neighbor after radio station WVOW broadcast the word that the dam had burst. One listener told announcer Marty Backus he heard the broadcast in time to move his family to higher ground.
He said that he was listening to WVOW radio and that they received their warning about 30 minutes before the water came gushing through, and they had time enough to take the family car and his 7 children and wife up to higher elevations. He said his house was moved approximately 100 to 150 feet, and it was completely demolished.
One woman recalled what happened that fateful morning.
What I remember is I heard the phone jingling. I woke up and I saw all my neighbors running all around up there, and I looked out the front door and I saw the water coming. I grabbed the baby and woke up Randy, and we grabbed a blanket and a house coat, and out the back door we went. By that time water was knee deep. We were standing on the tracks and water was going all around us.
All of
A subdued Governor Archmore issued a disaster proclamation the day the dam burst. He called all state agencies in to help with rescue and recovery.
The situation in Logan County has reached tremendously serious proportions.
Before any of the investigations into the cause of the disaster began, Governor Archmore proclaimed the event an act of God. That brought immediate and sharp responses from many quarters, and more changed course to begin inquiring whether it was really an act of negligence by the owner of the dam, the Pittston Coal Company.
I have asked every responsible agency of government in the state of West Virginia, the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Mines, particularly being the agencies that have the basic responsibility here, to search their records from the beginning to determine whether or not any request had been made to release any water into the Buffalo Creek area for the express purpose of making safe this particular water impoundment.
For years, that slag dam had been smoldering. Coal refuse can burn for years if not properly treated. State geologist Robert Irwin tried to explain the cause of the explosion.
The water from this bank got down to here. It could have forced the water that was already in that bank upwards. And if it is burning and the water comes from below, the first reaction when it hits the hot coal is to convert the steam to what we call water gas, which used to be your old producer's gas before we used natural gas. That, combined with additional steam, then sets up pressures that are so great in the pores there, the bank explodes.
While the recovery of bodies continued in Logan County, as a young reporter covering the legislature, I was asking a lawmaker, Senator Tracy Hilton, why the coal companies were allowed to build these mountainous dams.
Why have the companies built these dams up so high?
Well, they continue to dispose of their refuse from the plant, and the system of the past has just been to make them higher, and for no apparent engineering reason. It's just one of the things that just took place.
I was able to catch a ride on a National Guard helicopter to the head of the hollow, where rescue and recovery operations continued. Senator Jennings Randolph was at the scene, trying to console victims' families, some of whom were angry.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
You politicians.
Oh, you're going to lecture me.
Huh? No, I believe in telling the politicians. Yeah. Wait just a minute, buddy. This is a free country. And this is what we fought for, and that's what's the matter in Logan County today is people don't tell you politicians how they feel.
Well, I'm glad to listen to you.
No, you all just carry the people on their back and build them up until you carry them on their back and give them a bunch of political propaganda, and they elect you again and time and again. They take the coal miners, co-operators' money and elect you politicians, and you get to Washington and you care nothing about us. That's what I'm tired of.
All I can say is you're speaking untruths. That's all I can say.
Sir. Earlier, as a young reporter, I had found my way inside the makeshift morgue, where the body bags were everywhere. I was plainly stunned at what I was seeing then.
This is a temporary morgue in Mann Junior High School's gymnasium, where Senator Randolph has come to console the bereaved and the people waiting to find out if relatives of theirs will be brought in here dead or hopefully alive.
On my husband's side, there are 5 gone.
Are they missing, or do you know they're dead?
They've already been identified.
Does it console you at all that
yeah, they live right above me.
Excuse me?
They live above me.
Does it console you at all that you'll have free housing? Do you think you'll rebuild here, or stay here?
I won't move that holler. I'll never go back up there.
Where will you go?
I don't know.
The images from that hollow are burned into the consciousness of those who were there. The Salvation Army came to help, as did other rescue agencies. The trucks and helicopters came in and out of the hollow endlessly, carrying debris, some carrying human remains. In the weeks to follow, the bodies of some of the victims were found hundreds of miles downstream, in the Ohio River, tossed and swept by floodwaters for days on end. Senator Art Kirkendall is a lifelong Logan County resident who remembers well that day and the other days he spent working as a delivery assistant up and down Buffalo Creek Hollow.
When the news of Buffalo broke, I was like a lot of the rest of the people. Tears in my eyes, thoughts in my mind, because I knew a lot of the people, had actually worked on a pop truck on the weekends to help a friend of mine deliver to a lot of the small stores in the Buffalo Creek area. And when that happened, we were just devastated. Everybody that was just praying that the best would come out of a bad situation. And it's one of those days we'll never forget.
There will be a rent-free housing program for 1 year.
In the days following the disaster, Senator Randolph and Congressman Ken Heckler were often seen in the hollow, consoling and offering help. Governor Moore did not come to the scene. Senator Robert Byrd did not come to the scene. None of the top officials of the Nixon administration came to the scene. There were investigations, accusations, even a proposed television movie which never got released. It seems the prevailing public attitude was to try to move Buffalo Creek out of the public consciousness. I visited the hollow more than a decade later. The blown-out slag dam was still there. Cars, home rafters, still sticking out of the slag. It wasn't holding back water anymore, but for anyone willing to look, it was holding horrible memories.
And our Senate reporter, Bob Brunner, joins us this evening with more about the story. Also with us, he was a young student at West Virginia University 40 years ago. Today, he is Governor Earl Ray Tomblin. Governor, welcome.
Thanks, Beth.
Tell us your story. You're at West Virginia University up in Morgantown.
Right.
What happened?
It was a Saturday morning. We were watching on TV the devastation that was taking place, and there were some other students there from Logan County, and we couldn't believe what was happening. Obviously the telephone lines were out. There was that was back before basically any other kind of communications, and so we couldn't call home. We didn't know really what was going on, and the interesting part is on Monday morning, I woke up sick and had to have an emergency appendectomy, and so the people at WVU Hospital by emergency radio got my parents on to give them permission to do the surgery. And then the following Friday, I was supposed to get out of the hospital, and my mom was coming to get me. Well, that morning, she was taking my brother to grade school, and a train hit them. So they were in Logan General Hospital, the two of them in pretty serious condition. So I was able to get home still with the stitches and so forth, but got to go see my mom, and by this time it had been nearly a week, and I remember some of my friends who were taking me to see Mom and my brother. We counted 25 funerals, one after another, as they were starting to bury people. After visiting with my family at the hospital, we were able to, they had the main road blocked off, so many people wouldn't get in. So we took a back way into Buffalo Creek, went to a little community called Becco. And those things that you just saw on TV, it's still very vivid in my mind that the rails on the railroad tracks looked like pretzels, just twisted and turned, houses sitting on top of other houses, just debris, black mud every place. And it's, people just wandering because everything they had was gone. I mean, it was just, something that you could never forget. And, hopefully we will never have another incident like that again.
So he is at WVU, and he's got appendicitis, and Mom's in the... Where are you at this point in 1972?
I'm a reporter and in Charleston, and we get word that it's happening, and of course the first thing you're trying to do is figure out how to get down there, and as I said in the story, I caught a ride on a National Guard helicopter, and almost from the beginning there was a determination on the part of the Moore administration not to let reporters see how bad it was. They spent a lot of time trying to keep us out, and we spent a lot of time trying to get in. And so it was, as the governor said, it was just people wandering, vacant looks in their faces, and just, everybody lost somebody.
You must have been successful at getting these images on television because you were seeing them in Morgantown, and you could see the devastation.
Right.
In Logan County, did you know about this particular coal impoundment when you were in high school, when you were a young man? Did you know about this issue and that it could burst with enough water and rain?
I did not. I think a lot of people, after it happened, had concerns over the years that they were worried, and there was different reports that, you know, that the dam was full or the dam could be weakening or something, I was told. But as far as personally, did I know it was, that danger was up there? No, I didn't. It's, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things living 25 to 30 miles downstream that, yeah, and being in high school, that's not one of those things you normally worry about. But I think that the people did. There was, as you may recall, Bob, that there were people who said that they had been contacted, afraid the dam would break before it actually happened, but there was no early warning or anything to let people know what was actually coming at them.
How long did you stick with this story?
It really didn't get anywhere near the amount of coverage that a story like this would have today because A, they were working very hard to make sure that we were being limited, and B, it was the end of a legislative session. There were other critical things happening around the state, and I think it probably started to fade after about a week. There were some investigations and things that went on, but there seemed to be a determination on the part of the national state administration to minimize this as much as possible. Did you get that sense, Governor?
I did, and once again, you know, at my age, I was not, I mean, I made the one trip there, and then had to go back to school, but it was, you know, it did not. I agree with you. Today, should that happen, it would be on worldwide news and be covered for weeks, I would say, because the bodies continued to be found all the way down into the Ohio River, and they were stuck under logs and homes, and it was just, a terrible, terrible time.
What is Buffalo Creek like today? Have you been there?
I have been, and represented that area for 30-some years now. And yeah, the federal government and state, they came in, they built huge trailer parks in different areas, you know, and people were separated from where they had, you know, been born and raised and worked and so forth. And a lot of people lived for many years in those trailer parks that they put up. I'm just, you know, it's rough terrain. There's not a whole lot of land for building and so forth. But they were able to provide housing. They were able to go back in, reconstruct the roads and the bridges. You know, a lot of people have built back in Buffalo Creek, but you know, it's. I mean, there's some great people that live up that hollow and just saw the earth. They'd do anything for you. And but it has changed tremendously. You do not see the rows of the old coal camp houses and a lot of things like that you used to see. But you know, it's a thriving community again. So.
Is that coal impoundment dam still there?
Is the last time I was there, it was, and that shocked me, and it still shocks me that somebody hasn't done something about that. You know, just looking off the side of the road and seeing pieces of cars and pieces of houses just still sticking out of that impoundment. It doesn't hold back any water anymore, but it's still there, reminding us.
You know, any time that there's a disaster like this, you want to say, well, lesson learned. What lessons did we learn from the Buffalo Creek disaster? Well,
I think the first thing is, as Bob says, you know, there is no water behind that dam now. I mean, a slag pile is not something that's going to hold a large impoundment of water out there. And, you know, the thing has been breached and there's no water there, so I don't really see that there's any danger like there was at the time. But that's the one thing. We've had a lot of safety, mine safety legislation and trying to clean up the slag piles and so forth in this state. We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars, but you know, but really trying to concentrate. This was not really a mine disaster. It was the results of mining, but at the same time, you know, the dam probably should have never been put there to hold water because it was not constructed properly, in my opinion.
Lesson learned?
Well, you know, I think something that we had talked about, are there dams in West Virginia similar to that, of that ilk, of that age, still holding back water? I think the answer is no, at least nothing anywhere close to that amount of water. And it was a heavy price to pay, but at least perhaps some other lives were saved.
Absolutely. I think that you know, as far as I know, you know, most of those, well, all those kind of dams are gone. But you know, there may be other impoundments out there that I'm not familiar with. But we do have you know, people working for the state that checks on these dams and make sure they are safe.
They're monitored.
Speaking of coal mine safety, though.
And we're out of time, or else
sorry.
I would ask him, but we're out of time. Governor Earl Ray Tomblin, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Beth.
Bob Brunner, you can ask the governor about the mine safety bill when it's over in the Senate. This has been the Legislature Today, a testimony to the worldwide impact of the Buffalo Creek disaster. Here is a song entitled Black Water by Ian Smith, an Irish musician who saw a BBC documentary on the Buffalo Creek disaster. Smith recorded this song in front of our camera when our music showcase Mountain Stage traveled to Glasgow, Scotland. I'm Beth Voorhees. Thanks for joining us.
Deep inside the mountain cried, and stinking mud began to slide. A crumbling dam could never hold Blackwater back anymore. A torrent reads along the hollow, Buffalo Creek square in its path. Behind it, pain, death would follow, flooding all beneath its wrath. We almost made the mining road, my love and me were all but saved. Then she fell in the murky water, a shadow lost within the inside the mountain cried as stinking mud began to slide. A crumbling dam just couldn't hold Blackwater back anymore. A torrent raced along the hollow, Buffalo Creek square in its path. Behind it, pain, death would follow, drowning all beneath its wrath. No one see or touch her name, neatly carved in granite stone with the victims of the killing.